Here in my market of Surrey and the lower mainland of BC, starting in the early 1990s and lasting almost a decade. Well, during that period of time, construction, well, let's just call it what it was. It was bad. And since then, many of those apartment buildings constructed at that time have been labeled as leaky condos. And when leaky condos are repaired, they're usually converted or fixed with what we call a rain screen. But what the heck is a rain screen, and why do buildings need it? And most of all, does it even fix the problem? Well, in today's video, I'm going to explain everything that I have learned to date as a real estate agent here in the Fraser Valley, a market that has had its fair amount of leaky condos, probably actually way more than its fair amount. And all I ask in return for this information is that you subscribe to the channel and click the notification bell to stay up to date on the real estate market. And if you wouldn't mind, please click the like button to help me get this video to become the most viewed rain screen video on YouTube. So thank you so much for that. And now on to the video, starting with the disclaimer. I want you watching to know that I am not in construction. I am not a home inspector. I do not develop condo properties because I'm just a lowly old realtor. Everything I'm going to share with you in this video comes from more than 15 years of experience helping people avoiding buying into or selling out of problem buildings or leaky condos. Much of what I am about to cover here comes from my own research, speaking with home inspectors, and filtering through thousands of pages of strata documents over hundreds of hours. And on top of that, much of the information I have obtained is simply things that I have been told over time from other more seasoned agents in the business who actually sold those properties when they were brand new. So sit right back and let's talk about the wild world of leaky condos and rain screening. First off, when we've had condos built here in my market in the 70s and 80s, why in about 1988 to about 1990, and then for the next 10 years, did we start having problems with water leaking into buildings when we never had that problem before? Well, for that, I can only really cite two reasons. Reason one was, well, at that time, when everyone was busy watching 90210 and Melrose Place, well, everyone wanted to pretend that they were living in Southern California. So here in BC, developers trying to sell the dream started using a lot of stucco finish in their buildings. Stucco was a very common exterior in a lot of hot, dry places. If high quality product is used and installed correctly, stucco can be just fine. But since stucco is essentially just plaster applied directly onto the plywood wall with maybe a thin moisture barrier of protection at best, well, that type of exterior on a building is not really meant for a temperate rainforest like Vancouver. This is because when rain hits the side of the building, should water actually get in between the stucco and the wall itself, well, then it has nowhere to go. The water simply sits behind the stucco against the wood, and eventually everything starts to rot. And second is the part that I've had some trouble verifying in writing, but I still do believe it to be true. You see, many low-rise condos have trouble with siding and the windows of the building when the roof does not overhang the top floor. But as builders built buildings, say that 3 times fast, with wonderful overhanging roofs, well, then here's where the rumor part kicks in. And again, totally admitting that I have not been able to verify this in writing. Cities and municipalities started charging their development fees and taxes based on the roof overhang because it was obviously larger than the footprint of the foundation. And let's face it, developers aren't dumb, so if it costs more to build a building with an overhang rather than a flat roof with no overhang, well, then that's just what they do. So now if the stucco building had no roof overhang either, water was able to get in even higher up on the building. And again, that coupled with poor stucco that does much better in hotter climates, well, that very famous Vancouver rain soon starts collecting in the walls of the condo buildings, causing them to rot from the inside out. So that leads us up to the next step. When that stucco, and more importantly, the wood behind it, rots, well, it starts to look like this. Many people think those dark sections on the side of a building are dirt and it just needs a paint job. And often, well, that's not it at all. And it's actually the formation of mold and moisture. So now you have buildings that need the replacement of what is most commonly referred to as the envelope. The envelope is the skin of a building. In this case, stucco, wood, vinyl decks, railings, windows, flashings, doors, and yeah, maybe even the roof. And while often when you hear about condos being leaky, that means the envelope needs replaced, and ideally not just repaired. And most often it gets replaced with a rain screen. But a rain screen isn't actually a thing. Rather, it's a system. And let me explain. Let's say you have a leaky condo and it's getting repaired. Well, the process is to first off, obviously, remove all of the old stucco, siding, wood, or anything else that is rotten or letting water in. Then, obviously, you can't have a naked building. You have to replace it with something. Most rain screen systems work like this. The wood wall remains or is replaced. On top of that goes some level of waterproofing, often a kind of paper stapled to the wood. Then, instead of applying the siding directly to the waterproofing, now there is some sort of air gap, often created with small 1-inch strips that are installed vertically. Then the siding of choice, often vinyl or now commonly cement board, are secured to the 1-inch strips, creating an air gap, meaning that air can now travel inside of the wall. So essentially, rain-screened buildings are not actually watertight, but rather they breathe. The next step is to leave openings with some sort of flashing to help let water escape between each of the floors, should any water find its way into the building. Water always finds its way into the building, especially here in Vancouver. And I had to steal it from YouTube, so credit to this video down below in the description. But here is a rain screen video demonstrating what happens should water get into the building. Now imagine if there was no way for that water to escape. And then further imagine if you had 4 floors of water getting in and no place for it to go. Well, then your building might look like this. So now that we know what a rain screen means, you have to know that the overall envelope is a little bit more involved. A leaky condo will also likely need new windows and doors, each with their own flashings above and below them, because anywhere where there's not siding could be an entry point for water. The roof could need replaced as well, but often the roof and siding are not done at the same time because, let's face it, both are extremely costly to the owners. But it's not as simple as looking for air gaps between floors to tell if a building you are buying into is best suited for Vancouver weather. Next, we want to look at the decks. Oh, that guy's got a big deck. Many decks here in BC are originally built with a top mount railing system. So you have a wood deck with a waterproof sheet of vinyl over top that, well, is probably good for somewhere between 15 and 25 years. But then the railing is flush mounted right on top with 4 screws drilled directly into the wood and, yep, right through the waterproof membrane, causing most of these decks in this era of building to rot prematurely. But don't worry, there is a fix. You see, here in BC in 2007, the building code was updated to outlaw top mount railings, and instead side mount railings were introduced. This way, when that pesky rain drips down the metal railing, instead of pooling on top of the deck and getting into those screw holes, rotting the wood below, now it simply drips off the railing base and onto the ground below. So if the building you are looking to buy shows no evidence of air gaps, side mount railings, flashings, vinyl, or hardyboard siding, well, you're going to want to do a very thorough home inspection and comb through those strata minutes to make sure a total building envelope is not scheduled in the repairs. Because yes, the owners of the building in question are going to be the ones to pay for this work to get done. And it wouldn't be crazy for a full rain screen to cost each owner in the building $30, $40, $60, or maybe even $100,000. Yeah, that's per unit. And that could sink you financially pretty quick. Because often, even if you know that this stuff is going on inside of the building and it needs this type of work, the discount off of the selling price is often less than the assessment to each individual owner, causing you probably not to get a deal even if you think you are. Now, if this work needs done right now or is being voted on by the strata, well, your agent should address such circumstances in your contract of purchase and sale. And the real pain comes when you already bought a place and the vote for the work comes either between subject removal and completion, of which usually the seller is still liable for the bill, or worse, the vote comes after completion and now you're on the hook. But not always. That's why you need a good realtor. But you want to know the craziest part of all of this? Often the buildings with none of the work done are easier to finance than the building with a brand new, fully fixed up and renovated, rain-screened envelope. I know it's totally nuts and backwards, but it's true. This is because, well, a building that has had no work done has no record of being a problem building. And often insurers like CMHC and also banks will red flag buildings within their system where work is being done or has yet to be completed. Even worse, if the building is all fixed up and paid for by the seller and you want to buy in that building, the red flag won't be removed from the building until the strata receives something called the Certificate of Substantial Completion, meaning that yes, the work is indeed complete, and that certificate could take months or even years to obtain. And then after that, I've even seen many rain screen buildings end up in lawsuits for things like cost overruns. And I've even seen it where the strata sued their property management company because it was discovered that they charged something like a 20 or 30% general contracting fee within the $2 million rain screen job that the Strata Corporation knew nothing about. So let me conclude with this. If you see a property that looks like this on the outside, you should probably stay away from it. And if it looks like this, well, that's a good thing. But just because the property is rain screened, well, that doesn't get you out of the woods. There can be other issues that come up with that work for years and years to come after the building was repaired. And after watching this video, if you feel like you still don't have a good grasp on how to buy in the right building, well, you can book a call with me using the link in the description below at a time that works best for you. Please subscribe, click the like button if you learned anything here today, and we'll see you in a couple of days.